What's up, Lucky Gamers? It's Lucky Lux, and today we're going to talk about Virginia. We're going to talk about her skills, talk about her verse, talk about her teams. We're going to talk about just different ways you can combo her with other dolls as well. So if you guys like this video, go ahead and hit the like button, comment down below what you guys think about her, and please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. That way you guys know when I upload or when I live stream. But let's go ahead and get into this video. So Virginia is going to be one of the healers that you basically get right at the beginning of the game. She's a pretty decent healer at that. She buffs attack, she can buff defense on a single target, and then her attack form is more so of like a supportive attacker. So for free to play, I believe she's a good option to have before you get some of the other healers. Virginia is pretty simple, not really having to worry about too many combos, honestly, with her. On her first skill, she attacks a foe, dealing 100% of attack shadow damage. And, on her first skill level up, she increases the damage multiplier to 110%. Then at the second, it increases a random doll's attack by 5% for 2 turns. On the third, it increases the damage multiplier to 120%. And then on the fourth, increases a random doll attack by 10% for 2 turns. So it's a free damage buff, attack buff on her basic attack. So I mean, honestly, it's not the worst, right? It does increase a random ones. Wish that it could be on a certain unit. That way, if you're, you could use your Asuna, you could use your Lily, or whoever else you have. But hey, maybe on the second or third attack, you can increase your attack and then plan for that, right? All right, so on her second ability, Waxing, heals the doll for 90% of attack and dispels 1 harmful effect from the target. Oh, I do want to point out also, her stab bonuses are giving extra attack, so you do want to have high attack on her, because that's how she's going to pretty much buff her heals. But this is going to dispel a harmful effect, so if someone has a bleed, a burn, if they have the charm or anything like that, you can dispel that from that target. It's really good because you get an early dispel on and sometimes, especially if you're learning the game, the harmful effects can kind of make or break your battles depending on the type of harmful effect that you're going with. Especially in Abyss, there's a lot of effects that happens, or even sometimes on these Overlord bosses, a lot of them have effects that could honestly be the worst, and you can go ahead and dispel that. That way your team doesn't have to worry about it, right? But on the first skill level up, it reduces the SP cost by 2. Then on the second, increases the healing multiplier to 97%. Then on the third, increases the healing multiplier to 104%. And then on the fourth, reduce the SP cost by 2 again, and then increase the damage multiplier to 110%. I believe that is healing multiplier. I know they have some translation issues, but I believe that's healing multiplier. But hopefully they don't increase the damage. They don't give us this. I don't have it fully maxed out to know if there's a difference or anything, and it's really hard to test. But hopefully it's 110% of attack. It heals the doll, and then it drops this heal down to 16 SP. So maxing out this skill, at least for the first one, will lower it to 18, and then the rest of these will give you a little bit bigger of a heal. On the third ability, Conviction, increase your squad's attack by 10% for 2 turns. On the first skill level up, reduces the SP cost by 4. On the second, increase your squad's attack by 12% for 2 turns. On the third, it increases your squad's physical damage by 15% for 2 turns. And then on the fourth, increase your squad's attack by 15% for 2 turns. So with the first level up, it drops us down to a 36 SP, which is kind of around some of the more units who buff the whole team, right? So this skill is honestly amazing for you when you're starting out, because you have Lily and Asuna and Krisha, who are all and Lynn, who are all units who are physical. So you're giving everybody, first off, a 12% buff. If you're starting out, you're going to be able to get the first or the second one, right? And then on the third, if you get up to that, that's a 15% extra squad physical damage. So I'm not exactly sure how the squad attack and squad damage ends, but that's 2 buffs right there for you, and all the units that you start off with are physical, which is why on my Virgina guide I was saying that team is really solid, and I'll say the same for her. I mean, she's really solid with physical units. I mean, it's just a free buff, not including what you can add on with Gawana, what you can do with Lavira. You can honestly get some pretty nice physical damage, and she's one of those you start off with who buffs that, and physical damage is pretty much common throughout the whole game. Not too many bosses. Actually, I haven't found an enemy, to my knowledge, that isn't affected by physical damage. It's honestly one of the more common damages that happen to a lot of enemies. So, again, a really good ability. And then on her ult, Deliverance, heals a doll for 180% of attack. Deliverance does 2% increased healing per 5% HP the target is missing. On the first skill level up, reduce the SP cost by 8. And then on the second, increase the healing multiplier to 198%. On the third, increase the target's defense by 20% for 2 turns. And then on the fourth, reduces the SP cost by 8. And then increases the damage multiplier to 215%, which I hope, again, that is healing. But on this skill, there's a couple of things. So you want to use it, of course, the lower they are, right? You don't want to use it to cap anybody off. You want to make sure that they're at the lowest point of HP that they can be for you to be kind of like okay, and then heal them with that, because it gives her extra healing on top of that. Also, this is something that you can use on Frisia, right? If you're wanting to buff everyone else's defense. So you can buff Frisia's defense by healing her, right? You heal Frisia, she gets the... Now this is if you have the third skill level up. If you have the third skill level up, you increase Frisia's defense, and then Frisia can do her ultimate while she has the extra 20% buff that you just gave her, and then buff everybody even further with all those increases, right? So that's one way that you can combo Virginia with Frisia to make sure that everybody's tanky. You could also do this if like the boss is gonna do a like AoE attack or something like that. Cap off Frisia, that way she can survive, you know, most of the damage, and then have Frisia do her ult, that way everyone's kind of tanking to help them survive, right? And then you can just start healing with Virginia. If if she's just your single target healer, hopefully they're taking enough to last a couple of rounds for you to heal everybody. So when it comes to Frisia's first skill, the only thing I really could complain about is that I wish that this was a heal instead of damage, because there's times where I do want a free heal. That way I don't take away SP for like, you know, an ability that's like a buff or my ultimate, right? I don't want to have to, you know, heal with a skill draining SP, especially if I don't have a way to successfully get that SP back outside of like Abyss, right? Like I'm having to depend on only shield breaks and stuff. So that's kind of like one of my like only just like complaints, but it's fine. You know, like some people do prefer having damage on the basic, that way they can just use a healer to break shields. But honestly, like for me, the healers, most of them I have them as dedicated heals, and I need them to do that, and I don't want to have to use SP for that. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about her second skill set. So her second skill set, again, is going to be her DPS. It's more so of a supportive debuffing DPS set, but it's not bad, especially if you don't have any shadow damage. She's a good unit to have, just pretty much starting out with that. So her first skill, attacks the foes in the front row, dealing 60% of attack shadow damage. On the first skill level up, increase the damage multiplier to 65%. On the second, increases the damage by 10% per foe remaining. On the third, increase the damage multiplier to 70%. And then on the fourth, increase the damage by 20% per foe remaining. So on this skill, it's pretty much the more enemies that you have, of course, it does more damage. So there's some times where there's like 3 enemies in the front row. So that's when you want to use this. Increases this damage by a little bit. And it's an AoE attack, right? Now you can't attack the back row with it, but it'll attack the front row, break a couple shields. Honestly, that's not a problem, especially if she's not like a huge DPS unit. You can just use this to just help break the shields for a bigger, you know, shadow damage unit. On her second skill, Waning, this is going to attack all foes, dealing 80% of attack shadow damage, and reducing the target's damage done by 10% for 2 turns. On the first skill, it's going to reduce SP cost by 4. On the second, increase the damage multiplier to 88%. On the third, reduces the target's damage done by 15% for 2 turns. And then on the fourth, reduces the SP cost by 2%, increasing the damage multiplier to 95%. So this character is really good if you're... This skill's good, especially if you have an AoE fight and you have one tank that, you know, you really don't want them just get pretty much wiped out by all 4 or 5 enemies. So you pop this, depending on how you leveled up, it's either 10% or 15% less damage that your tank is taking. And also this is an AoE shield break. So again, for a character that you just start off with, this is really good. AoE shield breaks, and Shadow is, I would say, probably one of the second shields that I see, especially in Eclipse. There's, not Eclipse, but Abyss. There's a lot of Shadow shields in there. So, you know, you have an AoE Shadow shield break, and also it will reduce the damage done. So especially if those enemies are AoE, your other DPS or squishy characters aren't taking as much damage as well. So this is a very helpful ability. On the third skill, Oculation attacks a foe, dealing 175% of attack, shadow damage, and dispelling one beneficial effect from the target. On the first skill level, it reduces SP cost by 4. On the second, increase the damage multiplier to 187%. On the third, increase the damage multiplier to 199%. And on the fourth, reduce the SP cost by 2, and then increase the damage multiplier to 210%. So this is kind of more so her burst ability, because it's like one of her harder hitting abilities outside of anything she does with her ult. But it also dispels a beneficial effect from the target. So like if they have like a stacking effect, if they have like a heal, that heals them over time, if they have attack buff, defense buff, anything like that, you can dispel. Now you have to make sure that the beneficial effect actually says it's dispellable, but again, you have a unit here who can take off some of those stacking buffs that a lot of enemies have to kind of reset them on that, because I know some enemies can pretty much stack up attack or defense and make the fight pretty difficult, honestly, or more than it needs to be, especially in like the tower and or the Abyss. So it's decent ability, hits a little hard, and you know, you can dispel something. On the fourth Star Tide, this attacks all foes, dealing 135% of attack shadow damage and reducing the target's defense by 20% for 2 turns. So on the first skill level up, reduce SP cost by 8. On the second, increases the damage multiplier to 148%. On a third, its new effect is reduces the target's defense by an additional 3% per stack of Eclipse. And on the fourth, reduces SP cost by 8, increasing the damage multiplier to 260%. So this ult is really interesting. So it's an AoE shield break. It also reduces the target's defense by 20%. So being that the target's defense is reduced for 2 turns, you probably want to use this when you're about to start your DPS phase. So make sure that the shields are pretty low. Make sure that you can get a full rotation before the boss re-ups on the shield. But this is a really nice debuff to everybody, especially if you're doing an AoE fight. I will say with the third effect, reducing the target's defense with Eclipse, you want to stack her with some Eclipse units like, what is it, Satya. You can use Mako. Mako would be a perfect one. Mako stacks Eclipse really quickly. Koshare, and then like I know there's other units, but those are just a few who, you know, honestly can use the Eclipse to help out Virginia. I know like Satya is an AoE Eclipse user, and so is Mako, where they can stack Eclipse with AoE. So those would probably be some decent units that you'd want to use with her. But yeah, I mean, I see nothing wrong with this ability. A good debuff, especially on a free unit that you have. Honestly, her skills are pretty good. Alright, so on Virginia's traits, this honestly makes her an even better character. Being that you first start off with her, hopefully you can get a couple copies of her. Hopefully you can farm some shards with her in the Abyss, especially if you really like her. So on her first trait, Compassion, increases Virginia's healing done by 15%. So being that she's a single target healer, you don't want her to have to heal that same target twice. So giving this 15% increase is going to help out. That way she can get a nice big burst heal and then be done with that target. On the second trait, it's going to be Romance Reader. When Virginia deals shadow damage, inflict 1 stack of Eclipse with a 60% chance. I know it's a little bit lower. I have the third trait, so it's a little higher. But still, this gives her a chance to stack Eclipse on the unit on her own to help out with her ult on her second set, right? Or you can have her as a healer on the first set, and her basic attack can still do Eclipse, right? If you're in a more so single target fight. But either way, she can put Eclipse on the enemy, right? Which will help out other units who do really well against Eclipse also. On her third trait, this is where it increases the effect of Compassion Oh, I forgot I had the 3rd level up. So compassion might be a little bit different for you if you don't have her at a 3-star. And the same thing for romance reader, it increases it to 60%. So I assume it might be like 10% for the first and then 50 for the second. But anyways, on the 4th level up, this is where it increases the effect to 20% for compassion, and then increases the chance for romance reader to 100%. So honestly, when you have Virginia fully maxed out, being that she has a ultimate and a skill that are AoE, right? And her first ability hits multiple targets, she can pretty much stack up Eclipse quite a bit. And she lowers the defense of these units with Eclipse. So I would say if you are loving Virginia, if you have a shadow team that you want to work out, Virginia would be a good unit for you. She debuffs the mess out of the target. I could see situations in Abyss or even on boss fights where you could have a pretty insane shadow team, and Eclipse already increases the damage taken by the units. Stacks up to 10 times. That's 40% extra damage taken. You get the 20% debuff on the ultimate for Virginia, and you get the extra debuff from her Eclipse stack that they have on top of Virginia, and all those things stack, so you can get some insane damage going off. Now, if you're using Virginia as your healer, your buffer, damage dealer, just make sure to put your keys into her memory. Make sure to level up her sigils, get her skills leveled up. That's going to help out her base stats. Again, she scales her heals off of her attack, so you want to try to get her attack as high as you can to get some of those bigger heals. And with your trait, increasing her healing done, she can pop off a single target heal that can pretty much heal your tank full up. Now, talking Verves for Virginia, there are a few that honestly you just want to use because you're using her as a healer. So you have Apple. So this is going to grant the single target healer a 40% chance to do an AoE heal and a chance to dispel a harmful effect. So this is a really good one for Virginia because she is nothing but honestly a single target healer, and giving her a chance to do AoE heals. Also, the one they just had on the banner, Maiden of Light. After Wheeler performs a single target healing, grant the target 6% increased defense. This is really good, especially if you're using Frisia, because we just said Frisia loves defense. And there are other ones that you can use. For instance, I know there's Necromender. This is pretty much any of the heal ones. You got Forbidden Fist, grant a random doll in the rear row, and 8% increased damage done. So this is really helpful too, because you have your first base, your basic attack on your first skill, right? That increases a random doll's extra attacks. Hopefully it rolls on both of them, but if anything, you can increase one doll's damage done, and you can increase one's attack. So, you know, be mindful of those. And then also there is the Phantom Trickster. This helps out if you're doing the DPS on her. She gets a little extra damage done if you're trying to do more DPS. Now again, if you are free to play, this team here, there is nothing wrong with it. You have Virginia, who buffs everybody's physical damage and attack with her buff on her heal. You have Frisia, where Frisia helps out physical units with her tanking form. And then you have Lynn, who can debuff the targets to make sure they take more damage. And then you have Lily and Asuna, who can basically just one-shot quite a bit of enemies and also do mad lad damage on their ultimates. So this is a good team to have. Now, if you're wanting to use Virginia for a damage dealer, you're trying to do a Eclipse team, and you're wanting to, you know, spend a little bit of money and you're not sure to use. So I will say Mako is a really good unit. With her third skill, she can stack Eclipse quite well whenever she gets attacked, especially with her traits. Again, I said you have Satya, where Satya, she can proc Eclipse with hers, and then she also ignores defense, and she does extra damage on her third skill level up on her ult. Whenever they have 10 seconds of Eclipse, you can do up to 100% extra damage. I mean, you have Koshare. Koshare can stack Eclipse. She can also help you do double ults. She's a good to have as a healer. And then, like I said, you have Virginia. You can do her on her damage. And then lastly for this, you could do another DPS. There's a couple more options that you have. You have Innis. You got Minerthwin. And there's somebody else. Oh, and then you can. Yeah, so there's quite a few other students, Jesus, Blue Archive. There's other dolls that you could use with her, but this is, for instance, a team that you would use a bunch of Eclipse with, right? If you're trying to stack Eclipses, you can. You have an AoE damage dealer here, you have a single target damage dealer here, you have a healer, you have a debuffer, and then you have a tank. So that's pretty much all I have for Virginia. Just remember, really good single target healer, buffs, physical damage. So on a physical damage squad, you can use her. There's plenty of physical units that you can use her with. Again, I just can't really test and show you who the best ones are, but just think of your physical damage units that you have. Virginia can buff them up, right? On the Shadow team, you have her for damage, where if you have other units who use Eclipse, then you want to use her with that because she can help out if you get her traits. Or you can, if you have somebody else stacking Eclipse for you, then her ult can lower the defense for them. But again, as a free-to-play player, she's a really solid unit to have. Of course, there are other healers that are a little bit better, but for free, she's perfectly fine. But that's pretty much all I have. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. You lucky gamers, have a good one. Let's out.